action. Right, Andrea? We good to
Yes.
go?
Yes.
All right.
3, 2, 1, action.
All right. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Klingensmith. I'm on the Education and Interpretation team here at Shaw Nature Reserve. I host the Sights and Sounds Trail series when we meet in person. But recently, I've been doing the Sights and Sounds Trail series virtual tours. So I appreciate all of those who have been joining those. And so this hike today is going to be very similar to that style of hike. So we're going to walk the wetland today. It's about 3/4 of a mile long, and there is so much to see. So I will going to focus on what plants are in bloom, but also the fun things that you can see when you come out to the wetland. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my screen around. And again, feel free to ask questions. I can see the chat, so if you want to ask me a question directly, if I see it, I'll answer the question to the best of my knowledge. If I don't see it, I will take some breaks and Andrea will ask some questions on your behalf. So thanks for joining me today. It's about 1:07. It's probably about 87 to 90 degrees outside. That's why I'm hanging out in the shade to start. And it's a very clear sky today. Oop, wrong way. So very nice and blue sky out. It's a very beautiful day for an adventure along the Wetland Trail. So I'll go ahead and turn you around and let's go ahead and get started. So we are here at the far east side of the nature reserve and of the wetland cell. I can show you on the map, which is right here. So we are down here at the very far end. We will hike this loop around our large wetland cell, and then we'll hike all the way back here to the bus stop. That's where the parking lot is. Okay, so a nice 3/4 of a mile hike. Here we go. So this is our largest wetland cell. So our wetland complex is comprised of 32 acres of 8 of these wetland pools, plus many other small, small wet areas that have different hydro periods, just meaning that there's different water amounts depending on the depth of these pools here. And you can see this wetland is full of lilies. So we're gonna get out to go check out the lilies. What's really interesting, if you can see on that island, there's a nice little hump there. We do have a beaver that is living here at Shaw Nature Reserve. And actually what they are doing is they are changing the dynamic of this wetland by building this dam here. So this wetland usually will overflow right through here under this bridge and out that way to Brush Creek. And that helps maintain the water level at a wetland level that we are interested in. But the beavers are actually raising the water level to fit their needs. So it's a battle between 2 species who are trying to engineer this ecosystem for different purposes. So it's really fascinating. So as you come out to Shaw Nature Reserve, one of my big things is I want people to be able to identify plants and identify important plants. So here we have an umbrella-shaped or an umbrella-style flower head. So if we can get close enough, we can see that each tiny little flower has about 5 petals. So when we look at the stem, we notice it's a little bit purple. It has stripes running up and down it, and it's alternately arranged, meaning here's a branch, and then the next branch isn't down until further on the stem itself. And then each leaf is composed of these many different serrated leaflets. So this is a really important one to know. So this is water hemlock. So this is related to poison hemlock, and both species are extremely toxic. So I'm gonna make sure I wash my hands after this, but please be mindful of this plant. Okay. So water hemlock, it is beautiful, but just know that this is one of our most poisonous plants we have here at the Nature Reserve. Don't eat it. All right. Ooh, and then on the corner over here, we see this beautiful orange. So get down in here, and here we have butterfly weed. are one of our Asclepias. And look, speaking of butterflies, there's one right there, hanging out right next to the butterfly weed. Grows well down here in these moist areas. I have this as a landscape plant around my house, and maybe so do you. So we see a pop in color. Here we have Rudbeckia hirta, or black-eyed Susans. Not quite sure why they're called black-eyed Susans. If you take a close enough look, the head of this flower is actually purple. So it's really interesting. Nice and hairy plants, but a very common wildflower that we see here at the reserve and around the state of Missouri. Another great landscape plant. In the background, if you can hear, there's a red-winged blackbird calling. And one of the main reasons why we have this wetland cell is we were given a large donation to increase birding opportunities here at the Nature Reserve. So this wetland was built with the intent to increase the diversity of bird species here, on the same time increasing the enjoyment of birders from all over the world. So we'll see red-winged blackbirds, belted kingfishers, we have red-winged or red-tailed hawks flying over. We have the really cool bird is the osprey, because this is an aquatic system. We have oftentimes ospreys flying around, great blue herons, green herons. Many diverse bird species come and either stop here for a drink or they hang out to breed here, like our wood ducks. So these wetland cells, so this wetland cell, I believe, was built in 1990, I think it was 1997. So actually pretty recent in the scale of Shaw Nature Reserve. So 1997, the one we'll pass here in a little bit was built in 98, and then the rest were built between 99 and 2010. So all of this used to be farm field. And this was an area that was already pretty wet. As you can see, the water would have shed off the hillside, and would sit down here into this farm field. So what we did is we just came in, Shaw Nature Reserve, came in with backhoes and excavators, dug these hillsides out, and created this little reservoir for the water to stay here on the landscape and providing much necessary resources for the local flora and fauna. So I love this color combination between the yellows of the Rudbeckia and then our aquatic species of pickerel weed, nice and purple. I don't know if you can see, but there is a hummingbird moth right there. Oh, it's on the other side of that. There it is. So that's actually an insect, but it looks very similar to a hummingbird. So a hummingbird moth. Look at that, just Stichus proboscis in each one of those flowers, getting that nectar. Oh, there it goes. If you listen carefully, you can hear the green frogs that live here. It sounds like a single banjo strum. Oh. And then you can see the pinks and the yellows, or the pinks and the whites of the lily species that are in here. I'll get closer to some lilies as we get around to the boardwalk. Beautiful. So here we have again, just gonna drill this into all of my visitors' heads. Again, we see this nice umbrella shaped, and then, because that can be many different species, right? It could be Queen Anne's lace, can be wild carrot, but what we gotta look for next is we look at the stem, nice and purple, and then we're looking for the alternately arranged leaves. So there's one there, and there's one down here. And then if you remember what this is called, go ahead and put your ID in the chat if you remember what this highly toxic plant is called. Put that in the chat. That's your ID quiz for the day. All right, water hemlock, excellent. Cicuta maculata is the Latin name. I'm working on my Latin pronunciations. Oh, there goes a blackbird. Scared one out. Excellent. So the wetland does have these cool little steps that you can walk down to get closer to the water if you like. Again, the water is so high this time of year. Usually it's not so high, but because of the beavers and creating that little dam, the water level here in the wetland is a lot higher than it usually is this time of year. And so we do get down here and we can see our beautiful pickerel weed, and which dominates most of the aquatic vegetation around here. And this is smartweed. This has that nice pink flower on it. It's very similar to the smartweed. That's the terrestrial version. And then our irises, they are done flowering from the year, but this is where you can see them. And then back to our Rudbeckia here or our black-eyed Susans. Ooh, here's a fun plant. Some of you might be familiar. Oh, but look, it has a purple stem. Should we be in danger? Nope. This stem is square, right? So I take it in my fingers and I actually can feel the angles here. And then we have, so these are opposite. I hope you can see that. So the leaves are coming off on opposite arrangements on this stem. And in the very top, they're getting ready to pump out this nice flower that comes in bunches. So with those three identification pieces, with the square stem, the opposite arrangement, and the bunched flowers, so this is in the mint family. And then if we crush this up, this is one of these plants where we can crush the leaves, and it has a really nice fragrance. It's also used as a substitute for oregano. Anybody have any idea? Yeah, I'll try to help with the focus on this camera. So this is our Monarda species. This is Monarda fistulosa. So it grows to be about 5 or 6 feet tall. In early spring, its cousin, Monarda bradburyiana, is found in our woodlands, and that grows only about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. So it's a mint in the Lamiaceae family, really easy to recognize. And then crush that leaf and give it a smell. Has a wonderful oregano-esque scent to it. So we've been hiking for about 15 minutes or so. Does anybody have any questions? Anything I can try and answer as we continue walking? If you do, just put them in the chat. What kind of trees am I passing? We can talk about trees here in a little bit. But here we are in between our largest wetland cell, built in 1979 or constructed in 1997. No, 1997, please excuse me. And then to my right here, or to the west, is the second largest wetland cell. This one was built in 1998. So in the droughts that we had a few years ago, this cell was actually completely dry. Whereas this cell over here, because it's just a little bit deeper, still had water in it. So all the organisms that needed water migrated over to this pond here. It's a crazy time. All right, we can go look at some trees. Nice. So down here it is nice and wet, so that helps us identify our trees. So here we have one of our oak species. Zooming in, we see nice and deep lobes with nice pointed ends with, if we zoomed in real close, I don't know if you can see that, but there are little bristles at the end of this leaf here. So that means this is in the red oak family. So I'm not quite sure exactly which red oak family member this is. If somebody knows, go ahead and put it in the chat. It's real skinny, kind of looks like pin oak, but it'd also be black oak depending on where we are. Do deer get in here? Deer definitely hang out. Yeah. Deer have a 30-acre Whitmire wildflower garden that is through a deer exclusion gate reserve. We're going to commonly find shingle oak. And here's another one of our oak species that I'm unfamiliar with at this time. It is in the white oak family group though. I know that because instead of being really sharp along the margins, they're these nice and round lobes. So if anybody has an idea, go ahead and put that in the chat. This is our third oak species that we found in about 15 feet. All right, and this is the fruits of tree species. It's nice and soft, kind of reminds me of a dog ear. And your other hint is this is the state flower or the state tree of Missouri. Bonus points if you can name the Latin name. So what do we have here? State tree of Missouri. Boom. Jan Fay, dogwood. Barb Horton, the hawthorn is our state flower. Cornus species, you got it, Emily. Do you know which species? I'll give you a hint. It was first observed in Florida. Hey, Allie Brown, you got it. So now we're kind of making our way into this lowland forest. If you know who James Traeger is, this is his restoration area. But in here, we're going to find a lot of water-loving or wet-loving species, like this one here. So this leaf is actually pretty big. Usually, we don't see them this large, but they do grow alternately along the stem. You can see how it zigzags patterns. And a really cool thing about this one, if you crush it or break a piece off of it, it does have a nice fragrance to it. It has a very citrusy scent, kind of mixed with like an apple scent. So this is a host plant of the spice bush swallowtail, the butterfly. So this is in fact a spice bush, and we will see it all over here. And it's hanging out right here with this hackberry, Celtis occidentalis. Look how deep those furrows are. I remember this as a hackberry because it looks like someone took an axe and hacked at the branches or at the trunk here. So hackberry. It also has berries up top that if you do eat them, you will hack them up. It's another way to help me remember. But so I don't recommend eating them, is what I'm getting at. If anybody's good at bird ID by calls and you hear one, put it in the chat. That's one of those natural skills that I'm constantly working on. Ooh. Well, here we have another one of our wet soil loving species. Again, this species has 3 leaf types. It has the ghost. Ooh. It has just the oval shape. And then one that's not as common. Let's see if I can find one. Here you go. It has this nice mitten shape. So 3 leaf types for the same plant. This is Sassafras albidum, commonly known as sassafras. So you can, this also has a really nice scent. I popped the whole leaf off and smell. To me, it smells like Fruit Loops. And this is a plant that you can definitely still, you know, if you have one in your own yard, dig it up. You can boil the roots and you can reduce that liquid into a syrup and you can make sassafras tea out of it. Or if you have one of your own carbonated drink machines, you can use the syrup created from this boiling of the roots to make your own root beer. I've never had it, but I've heard it tastes pretty good. So we're gonna head off into the boardwalk now. And again, it's really interesting because usually this time of year, the water is not this high. Usually this whole area is dried out, but because of that beaver, we're seeing an increase in the water level throughout the year in this area, which eventually will change the plant dynamics in the community here at the nature reserve in our wetlands. So we're keeping an eye on them. And yesterday I saw a baby snapping turtle in this area. So I was just kind of seeing if it was still here. I'm gonna assume it's moved off. But if I find it, I'll show you. All right, let's keep walking. So fun fact about this boardwalk is made from 100% recycled plastics. This is one of the first generations of recycled plastic usage. So if you come to Shaw Nature Reserve, and I ask that you do, just to join us a little bit, and on the edges there, if you actually look on the side of the board, you can see little pieces of blue and white and yellow plastics that this was made out of. Ooh. All right. Nice. So here we are in the wetlands. We were walking the berm over there. There goes a blackbird. So we walked the outside so far, all the way down the tree line. That's pretty much where we've walked. Let's see if we can't find some lilies in here. Here's a nice one. Ooh, nice pink lily. Get you down close to it. Get the smartwood out of the way. Nice. Beautiful color. And then here's a little variation in color. Get my head out of the way. The sunlight is out and sometimes it washes out the flowers. Look, there's a tiny little spider. How about my pinky? So this is a fantastic place to come and sit, especially if you get tickets for the evening. You can come here and relax and enjoy a nice rest on the bench here and look out over the boardwalk and then just listen to the sounds of the natural world here. And we do have our cypress trees growing along the edges here. And just like in the woods, where deer make little pathways, you can kind of see right in here where the beaver was kind of coming and going. So if I can get you up there. And you kind of see the pathway the beaver has made to access whatever it wants under the bridge. All right, let's keep walking along. Ooh,
Andy,
there's one of our, yeah.
We had a question about the water lilies, if they're native.
I believe that they are. So I learned that there are like over like 150 species of water lilies in the world. And so Shaw Nature Reserve, our big goal is to display the native species that were found, that are found here in the Ozark region. So while I do not know like specifically if they're native, I would just assume because of that is our mission. But at one time this was Shaw's Arboretum, and before that this was Henry Shaw's Garden Way. So there might be some residual non-native species here. But we've done a lot of work to eradicate those non-natives and invasives and replant them with their native counterpart. Thanks for the questions. So all along the trail, we'll find these pinnately compound leaf structures. So this is Juglans niger, or black walnut. An easy way to determine whether this is a black walnut compared to like an ash tree is one, you can look at the arrangement. Ash trees are opposite. These are alternate, or you can just you can break their stem and smell it. It has that very familiar walnut smell. Yep, this is definitely a walnut. Take a step back. All right, this is the nice part of the trail because it's nice and shaded. We are here in a lower woodlands. Soon enough, we'll make our way out into the open, wet prairie. But I just do want to show you one of my favorite plants here. It's my favorite just because it looks terrifying. So this is what we're looking at. Ouch, ouch. So we're looking for a plant that is oppositely arranged. You can see the twigs coming off on either side of the stem. We have a grouping of pinnately compound leaves. But why I keep saying ouch is because if we look really close, and when it zooms in, can we see the thorns on this plant? Take a step back. I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see those. There's one right there. Ouch. So this is called devil's walking stick. If someone is, Andrea, can you read that question about
Sure.
allergy?
Yeah, Kathy's a good question. If someone is allergic to the oil in walnuts, would rubbing a leaf activate the allergy too?
I guess it depends how allergic you are to it. Some people who are highly allergic, any like bump or any disturbance of that leaf will release that oil, which might potentially cause you to have an allergic outbreak. Again, I think it all depends on your severity of your allergic reaction. All I can say, thinking about like poison ivy, any bump along poison ivy will make some people super allergic and have a terrible reaction. We all hear the joke, like I can't even look at poison ivy without getting it. Other people, you know, I can bump it and be fine, but if I'm working in it all day, then I start to get it. So I would just say, just if you don't know, just try to avoid it at all costs. Or if you know if you hit it, just wash it off. Usually that oil kind of takes 30 minutes to react to your body chemicals. All right, so here we're kind of moving out from the moist woodlands into more of our prairie restoration area. So up the hill here is an area of prairie that we've restored. Actually, we've reconstructed because, again, all of this was farm field. Everything you see around here was farm field up until, I think, even up until like the 1970s. So during World War II, this was a castor bean field. Does anybody know why farmers during World War II would plant lots of castor beans? If you do, go ahead and put it in the chat while we look at common milkweed. Another Asclepias. Really interesting growth habit of these nice like cones, or not cones, but like round orbs. So that's kind of a lighter pink. Usually we see is a little bit darker pink. And then we can always look for monarch caterpillars. I just see a bunch of Georgia ants right now. We'll keep looking. Okay. Ooh, and then we have new growth of gray-headed coneflower. So that's what we have going on here. Nice. Ratibida. Castor oil. That's right, Lee. Yep. The military was in short supply of castor oil. So farmers, as a, to help the war effort, would plant castor beans. And I guess castor oil was used for everything. So I saw this yesterday, which I thought was a very interesting sight. If you can see, there's actually a bee right there. Can you see that bee? It's not alive. It just sat there all day for me yesterday. And I think it just got so overjoyed with the amount of nectar it had. And that was it. So it's just been sitting there. But you can see all the red ants all over it too. So the ants are farming the nectar from this plant. Common milkweed. Asclepias. I don't know the species. The genus is Asclepias. Look how beautiful of a day it is. I wish you all were here. You could come out, enjoy the trail. This is a pretty easy trail. Again, it's only 3/4 of a mile, and it's nice and maintained with this gravel. Ooh. And every once in a while, one of these flowers catches your eye. So here we have poppy mallow. This one is a little more red than pink that we're used to seeing. We'll see these a lot more along this trail. Andrea, I saw something pop up. Was that a question?
Well, Em had a question before, just clarifying if castor bean is what ricin is derived from.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's something that we can look up on the internet.
Yeah. And then they mentioned that they named what common milkweed is in Latin. Great job,
what did they
Em.
say?
I'm gonna butcher it.
That's fine. Asclepias. What's the last part?
Syriaca.
That
the
sounds
Latin
great.
is rusty.
Well,
And that sounds right. I believe you. Yes. And Andy, we did have one of our volunteers watching said yes about the ricin connection.
All right. Well, thank you. Yep. And a big part of the Sights and Sounds Trail series is that we're building a community of naturalists. So my favorite part is that if I don't know a question, the community members that are watching oftentimes will have the answers. So yeah, thanks, Bob. So that's what we do out here in the natural world. We build communities and then we learn off of each other. Oop. There was maybe a monarch or a viceroy. There, see it? Working with wildlife is really difficult. Oh, there it is. I wish I had a better zoom. It looks like our first monarch. Nice. Look at that. Look how close you let me get to you. All right. Yep. Oh, man. There it goes. All right. Everybody mark this day. June 25th. First monarch at Shaw Nature Reserve. You were all here for it. Awesome.
Andy, is this trail usually, is it busy or is it more quiet and subtle? We haven't seen anybody yet, but that doesn't mean
Yeah, we
people
have
are
to
not
remember
at
too, it's
Shaw.
also like 1:45. So this is one of our, this is a pretty popular trail because it's nice and short and it's nice and flat, but it's, again, it's like 92 degrees today. And you can see we're out in the sunshine. So most people, if they're here at the reserve, they're back in the woods. But once the sun goes down, this is a pretty popular trail. In the winter, do they just what was that question?
Do they let the brush and things on the side of the trail die back, or do they mow it in the winter?
So oftentimes we'll mow it just to maintain it, but as part of our restoration strategy, we will burn all of this through prescribed fire. So along the tree lines, all of this will be burned. So this was not burned last year, which means that it's set to be burned this year. We have a lot of woody species in here. Like right here, we have shingle oak, and we have one of our other white oak species here. And we'll oftentimes see a lot of sumac in here. So we maintain this area by burning every winter. But you can see, like during the growing months, we do cut it back. If not, it would all just flop over the trail. You can kind of see, if you look back through there, all of our there's a lot of woody plants that are just popping up in here. So that's what we try to remove with fire, because this is like a moist meadow, or a wet prairie, they call it. So these plants, we want to see a more diverse prairie planting down here, but we have to remember where we are. We're in eastern Missouri, and this area historically has been dominated by oak and hickory woodlands. So the prairies here at Shaw Nature Reserve are only maintained via human management, especially through fire. If we were to let all of this go, eventually the trees would start to take over, and this would just be a forested area. And then over here, we see another umbrella-shaped plant flowers here, still with five little leaflets. So, could be water hemlock. But we look down, we look at the leaves. You see that leaf right there, almost like a skeleton-shaped leaf. And then skeleton, I just mean it's very, there's not a whole lot of surface area. And then the stalk itself, hopefully you can see that, is green. So this is yarrow. But again, from a distance, it looks similar to water hemlock. So yarrow. Yarrow also has a nice, wonderful fragrance to it. You can crush the leaf in your hand. Yes, nice. Ooh, and then we have our field of yellow crownbeard, also known as yellow wing stem. If I slow down, and so it has a nice yellow flower head, but it's called yellow wing stem because if you look close, and I'll try to be still so it zooms, but around the stem here, you can see these like leafy protrusions off the side of them. I hope you can see that in the video. It's really cool. So it's interesting. We're not quite sure why these are here. They might be added leaf tissue for more photosynthesis. It could also be used as a gutter system. So when the water hits the plant from the rain, it just gets funneled right down the wings, down to the base of the plant. Andrea, can you still hear me? I saw a sign of...
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, that's good.
Is anyone else able to hear Andy? Well, or me talking?
Yeah.
Okay, at least one of okay, a couple more people can hear.
That's good.
Andy, I hope you can hear.
Yeah.
We are recording this, so you can play it back.
Cool. Yeah, sometimes this virtual zooming is challenging for some. Just depends on your on your speed on your internet. All right, and then we're into an area full of sumac. So this is winged sumac. Again, just like our crown beard, if you look along the stem, there's those leafy protrusions that are coming off. It's easier to see kind of on the backside. You can see the wings coming off the stem there. So this is winged sumac. And then we'll find its cousin, smooth sumac, here in a little bit. Both berries of the sumacs, the winged sumac and smooth sumac, are edible. They do have a cousin, poison sumac, but we don't have that here at the reserve. So there are some folks coming, so I will be pointing you this way for a little bit. So why don't you enjoy Monarda fistulosa. Nice. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi there. All right, back to the trail. So it's nice to sit under the shade here of these really old oak trees. But if you talk to our restoration ecologist, he will say that this is a prairie and these trees are nothing more than large weeds. So in this prairie plot, we want to reduce the amount of woody species. So our restoration supervisor sees these trees as nothing more than inconvenient weeds growing in his prairie plot. Another way to think about trees, I never would think that. I'm a dendrophile, just meaning I love trees. Wow.
Andy, I do have a question. We have had Mike Saxton come and talk a little bit about the prescribed burns at Shaw Nature Reserve.
Sure.
This was a while ago. I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit. I think you touched on this already. We've had some visitors. For people that don't know about the prescribed burns and may find that like alarming or upsetting, like, oh my gosh, everything is intentionally being set on fire. How do you kind of share the educational message of that to visitors so it's not seen as like we're burning burning everything to the ground?
I get it. I mean, so we look at the beautiful flowers that we find here at the Nature Reserve. We look at the diversity of species that we find here. We look at this really pristine ecosystem that we have here at the Nature Reserve. And this is all due to prescribed burning. So prescribed fire is kind of terrifying because it looks scary. We've heard stories of fires out west that just rip through landscapes and destroy everything in their path. But fire, just like many things, has two sides of its coin, right? It has its destructive side, but it also has its rejuvenation side as well. So we have a prairie here that's full of diverse species, grasses and forbs. If we were just to let this go, we start seeing more and more woody species, and this turns from a prairie planting into a forest planting. So we could manage that by cutting it down, spending many, many hours of staff time, machinery, gasoline, and doing the work that way. Or we could send fire through it, which does the job of 18 staff members mowing. And so we also have to remember too that the fire burns away a lot of the excess debris and the refuse from last year's growth. So when all that is burned away, it allows for the new plant life to be uninhibited and not competing for that light. We're also seeing research that some plants require fire to grow. Without that fire activation of either their growth points, the plants don't grow as well, and they become outcompeted by some other non-native plant that is not used to fire. So fire is, in one sense, terrifying, but fire also produces the beautiful views that we see here at the Nature Reserve. It's just one of our tools in our toolkit. I highly recommend watching the YouTube video of prescribed fire at Shaw Nature Reserve. It's really a sight to behold, and Mike Saxton kind of narrates that. So check that out if you want to share that link with your visitors or with your volunteers.
I will. And Andy, is there, we have a question from Jane, is there a fire truck there when you do the burn, or how do you control the?
Sure. So that's a lot, it goes into a lot of like fire science, and you have to understand the weather conditions, you know, so we only burn on certain days. Like today would be, in the wintertime would be a good day to burn because we have what's called a high sky. So the smoke will rise up. If you imagine, if it's like really cloudy out, that's what's called a low sky, and it doesn't let the fire, doesn't let the smoke escape. We also have fire breaks. So like this pathway would be a fire break. So we'd want to light this part on fire, and then the fire theoretically should stop here and not jump. But we also have staff members that are along these fire breaks. We do have, we have water pumps and water trucks out. We have staff members who have water on their back and backpacks. But if Mike Saxton reads the weather correctly and has the right fire strategy, we can burn trees with very little human, helping out, I guess. So we do have to call the fire department and let them know. But other than that, we run a 30-acre fire with a staff of about 15. So this area was not burned last year. You can see some of the brown refuse of the grasses from the year prior. So this will be set to be burned this year. All right. And then it's sunflower season. So here we have oxide sunflower. This is also known as false sunflower. A really easy ID of false sunflower is if you turn it over. Hopefully I can see it with my camera. But if you look at the green bracts underneath, sunflowers are very pointed. This false sunflower looks more like thumbs or fingers, nice and round. So see those green bracts, the nice and round green bracts, false sunflower. So this is also known as oxide sunflower, or Heliopsis helianthoides, simply meaning a sunflower looking sunflower. All right, so we are getting to the trailhead. Here's another common milkweed. Always got to stop, check it out, see if there are any monarch caterpillars living on it. I don't see any. Oh man, but we do have a nice little, oh, there it goes. Nice little stink bug hanging out right there. Ooh. And this area right here, so here's the Wetland Trail. And as I'm backing up, this is Freund Ridge Road. So this prairie planting right in here was one of the first prairie plantings here at the reserve. And this is one of the more diverse plantings and diverse prairies that we have in this tiny little area. Ooh, look, more milkweed. Maybe we'll find a caterpillar on this one. Oh, looks like something's been eating at it for sure. Look at that. Look at that herbivory right there. Nice. So potential sign that monarch caterpillars are here, but again, I don't see any. And then one of the last plants that we want to check out on this side is our Baptisia alba, or our white wild indigo. There we go. Nice and tall. This is about 5.5 feet tall right now. And there's our housekeeper, Erin. All right. All right, Andrea, so it's about 2 o'clock. I do have to walk back to my office. So if your volunteers are interested, we can just keep the camera rolling as I walk back. Feel free to stay if you want. You can all, they can also take off if they need to. But if they have any questions, I love answering questions as much as asking questions. So if anybody has any, please feel free to ask. If not, you can always check out the Sights and Sounds Trail Series Facebook page. If you all have Facebook, that's where I post a lot of my videos. And this week was Nature is Wild and Scary was the theme of the Facebook page. So go check that out. Barb might know what we're talking about. She already posted on that this week.
Andy, thank you. This is so great. We can stay with you as you walk back and see if there are any more questions. I did post two YouTube links. One talks about the Ecological Restoration Volunteer Program, and one is, I think, the one you were referring to, where Mike is narrating.
Yeah, those are awesome. Yeah. Make sure we wash our hands, wear our face masks, because I want people back at the nature reserve. People can come back. I want volunteers. We have a lot of work to do. We have 2,441 acres, and we have a restoration crew of 3. So we really are reliant on those volunteers to come out, spend some time with us at Shaw Nature Reserve, and actually get to go to some parts of the reserve that no guests get to, just because how far out of the way they are. So it's another little incentive to be a volunteer at Shaw. You can go see some of the more wild places. So here's a really interesting piece of natural history. So if you walk up the hill, you notice that there are trees planted in straight lines all the way through this area. Now, naturally, this would never happen, right? So these trees here were once part of a windbreak for the castor field that used to be here. So once I get into the shadows, my camera will do a better job of refocusing. There we go. Nope. And so you can kind of see the trees in the line that way. Let's go on this side. Blackbird. There we go. We can kind of see the trees all the way down this row in a single file line. And what's interesting, they're all the same size. That means they're all the same age. So these were planted for a specific reason, either to separate the farm fields or to act as a windbreak. So every once in a while at Shaw Nature Reserve, not only are we a place for visitors and guests to come hang out, we also have many researchers from the garden, but also Tyson Research Center at WashU. And so if you're out and about and you see a plant with these bags on them, it's not trash, it's research. So the research is asking the question, so these can be pollinated, right? So this is a really fine mesh, and they're wondering if there are tiny, tiny pollinators that are actually getting through this mesh, pollinating these flowers. So we see them here. Oh, there's one up there, and there's one back in the field that way. So if you see bags on plants, it is part of some ecological research that someone is doing. So just leave them be.
Andy, I have a question about your trail series, your Sights and Sounds series.
Yes.
How do you choose what your theme is? Do you have is there a method behind the madness to how you choose a theme or where you go, or can you speak to that a little bit?
So I had a theme this week just because I found a few videos and posts that had a similar theme. Usually the theme is the natural world. But as I've been doing more and more of these online engagements, I found it fun to have like a scary nature theme week or a light and fluffy nature theme week. And the pathways really don't ever have anything to do with the theme. It's just something fun to engage visitors. So it's usually what I find on the internet that interests me. And then each week I do a hike like this, and I try to do like a wetland hike one week, and then a forest hike one week, and then a prairie hike one week. So just kind of doing rotations like that. And it all depends on the season too. You know, early in the spring, I focused a lot more in the forest because that's where the ephemeral flowers were. But now that it's getting hotter out, more prairie plants and more prairie flowers are beginning to bloom. So I focus down here. Good question.
There's many compliments for you, Andy, in the chat. Everyone's really enjoying this. It's a beautiful place, peaceful place, very informative.
Thank you. Yeah, I like hiking outside, and so I thought that if I'm going to be outside anyways, I might as well bring some folks along with me. So that was kind of the catalyst to the Sights and Sounds Trail Series hikes that I used to do and that I will continue to do once we have beaten and overcome COVID. But for now, I'm just bringing people outdoors in a virtual hike. I know it's not the same, but my goal is if you can recognize one plant from today, that's one plant you didn't know yesterday. So that's the goal. Okay. Look, our wild garlic is growing. Nice. If you're hungry, you can dig that root out for some garlic, or you try to keep away vampires. That's something you can do. And I'll move up here. So I found these beautiful clumps of flowers here that I am not familiar with. If any one of your volunteers has an idea of what they are, go ahead and let me know in the chat. They're kind of everywhere. There's big, puffy white flowers, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they have 6 flower petals, and there are numerous flowers on this plant here. We can go down. Oop, and there's the stem, nice white stem, alternately arranged with these beautiful flowers on them. So I'm not familiar with what that is, but if one of your volunteers is, please let me know. And they're everywhere. You can see them kind of dotted out through here. Yeah. All right, and here's a plant that, again, I think everyone should know. So we have nice white clumps of flower heads. And if we find the stem down here in our fingers, we recognize the stem is square. And if we look closely, opposite branching, clusters of flowers. What family do we have here? Anybody have an idea? The arch does have a ton of windows. You can't go inside. Yeah, it's in the mint family. Good job, Emily. How you doing? So this is slender mountain mint. So you find this one, take some leaves, crush them in your finger, and these really smell like mint. You can add these to any one of your teas. If you drink tea, crush that up, put that in your tea, or any other one of your favorite drinks. Slender Mountain Mint. Nice. All right, we got some more people, so I'm gonna have to stand off to the side here in a little bit. I'll let you check out this beautiful Cornice, Florida. I look at the bark, and to me, the bark looks like corn flakes. So corn flakes, Cornice, Florida, just helps me out. All right, onward. It is a hot day. This would be a good day to find some reptiles. I've yet to see any, but commonly we find three-toed box turtles out here. We'll find a lot of black rat snakes on the trail. Don't be worried, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. They just look scary because they get to be like 6 or 7 feet long. So just let them go, let them hang out. But it's really hot right now. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that they're not out and about. They're probably hanging out in the shade. Nice. So here's so you can see over here the prairie that has not been burned. You can just see all of the last year's grass stalks compared to a side that was burned over here. And you see there's a lack of those grass stalks over here. So 2 sides of the picture, not burned, burned. And look at that, I've been watching this tree. This was a dead tree. Every year just burns away a little bit more. But I like to see it as a piece of art, an art installation here at the Nature Reserve. So. Yep. And then we have, so in the prairie, we have a family of silphium plants. So here we have cup plant. This is a member of the silphium family. Cup plant because the leaves are clasping around the stem. So when it rains, we do find water gets stuck here in these cups. And animals like to hang out in here, snails, but I've also seen like little frogs hanging out in here. So this is one member of the silphium family. It has a very sandpapery feeling leaf, and right next to it is its cousin. So here we have compass plant. It's another member of the silphium family. And if we rub its leaves, they are also very sandpapery. So this plant is known as compass plant, simply because if you look at the lack of surface area on the leaves, so these leaves oftentimes are oriented facing east to get morning sunlight, and then west to get the afternoon sunlight, oftentimes orienting them north and south. So you can kind of see how they're oriented a little bit north and south. So this is why it's called compass plant. But like moss on a tree, don't rely on this solely for your directions. So we have compass plant, cup plant, and then we'll find prairie dock here somewhere. So I know I saw it back. Oh, there's one up there. So a third member of the family is here. So this is prairie dock. Really big leaf. There's the size of my hand. But again, it has the sandpapery feel. And all 3 of these plants, so the cup plant, prairie dock, and compass plant, will all shoot up a really long stem that has a nice bright white yellow flower on the top of it. And the last family member is called rosinweed. I'll see if I can't find rosinweed. They grow all in the same area down here in the prairie.
Andy, I know you mentioned this being a good like beginner trail, kind of because it's shorter. Do you have other recommendations for visitors? You know, sometimes going out to Shaw may be a little overwhelming because it's so many acres.
Right.
Do you have any recommendations for volunteers when they come out to visit, of maybe like trails or areas to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So the wetland is really good because there is a parking lot. So I didn't show you that, but at the end of this trail, there's a parking lot, so you can drive here. If you drive up to the, what is it called now? Oh, the trail house. There's a parking lot at the trail house, and you can walk the Brush Creek Trail. That's what I was going to do today, but there's too many visitors here. So the Brush Creek Trail is pretty easy. You can also access Brush Creek from the Bascom House, where there's a parking lot there. And then always go to the Whitmire Wildflower Garden. That's accessible right there at the trail, or at the Bascom House as well. So I'd say those would be kind of your 3 easy beginner trails. So this trail, nice and flat. The Brush Creek Trail, it has some elevation change, but it takes you through prairies, forests, takes you over Brush Creek, so you can get a lot of different ecosystems in your one hike. And then always check out the Whitmire Wildflower Garden. There is a cultivated area, and then you can walk down to the lower garden, which is more a natural scape of a wood area here at Nature Reserve. So I would say start with those. Wolf Run Trail is also pretty good. You can access that right there at the visitor center, and that will take you to Wolf Run Lake. So wetlands, Wolf Run Lake, Brush Creek, Whitmire Wildflower Garden. Start with those 4. All right, we'll
Awesome.
take one more walk around. Yeah, we'll take a walk around the boardwalk one more time, because it's a pretty popular place to come and hang out.
Is the Bascom House? Oh, sorry. Jane asked if the Bascom House is still closed.
Yeah, it's still closed.
Okay. But the trails are not.
But the trails are not. Yep. Yep. So right now we're promoting Shaw as like a place to come that's wild. You know, you come out here. So there are a few restrooms open, but make sure you bring your own water. Make sure to pack it in, pack it out, practice good, leave no trace, and then come enjoy the nature reserve, right? Bring your cameras, bring your sunscreen, bring your field notebooks, bring your nature journals. You can sit here and paint. You can sit here and write poetry. You can listen to the sounds of the natural world, and then just enjoy the beauty that is Shaw Nature Reserve. All right, and this is where we kind of stopped last time, but we do have an iris that's still out and about. It's a really light morph of our blue flag iris, Iris virginica. It's one of the last ones. And so you saw it here. So here is the last member of the Silphium family. This is rosinweed. That's its flower heads. But again, we feel the leaf, and the leaf is very sandpapery. So this looks very similar to a sunflower. But again, if we notice the bracts, it's kind of hard to see, but the bracts are shaped like isosceles triangles, right? I think that's what it looks like, if I remember my math terms right. So while sunflowers are much skinnier, kind of like this one here, rosinweed has these really wide bracts. Oh. All right, seen the 4 members of the Silphium family. Okay, cool. All right, so we just went out and back. So this is a 3/4 mile trail, one direction. So we just went ahead and walked 1.5 miles today. Really nice. It is kind of blistering hot right now. So if you do come out in the middle of the day, make sure you wear a hat, bring a bunch of water bottle. And I oftentimes like to use hiking poles. Just helps me, keep balanced, but also move snakes out of the way if I need to. Oh, look, our butterfly weed. Just beautiful orange flowers. The only orange that we'll see this time of year until we get into the woods and see our touch-me-nots. Just beautiful colors. The next time you see Asclepias, look closely. I think their flowers have one of the most unique shapes of all the plant species, in my opinion. Ooh. There's our cup plant, nice and tall. This would grow to be about 6.5, 7 feet tall. So this is where we started. Get back in the shade. Nice. All right. So I do want to thank you for, let me get this down here and like get in the shade. There we go. So thanks for joining me today at Shaw Nature Reserve. I appreciate it. Andrea, thank you very much for allowing me to share the reserve with your volunteers and other MBG staff. If you wouldn't mind, can you send me a copy of the chat?
Yes.
So I can see those comments and ask any other questions?
Absolutely.
So make sure your volunteers, if you have Facebook, check out the Sights and Sounds Trail Series group page, join that, and that's where I'll be hosting most of my stuff. So hope to see you out here soon. Anything else, Andrea?
No, Andy, thank you again so much. The majority of our audience has remained, or is still here and has remained. They want to hear everything that you had to share. So thank you for your time.
No problem.
We did get a question about how we find this on Facebook. So I've been linking this kind of in our weekly newsletter. I've been sharing the link.
Cool.
So keep posting the videos. We'll keep watching them. Thank you again so much.
Sure. Yep. You can always go on like the Shaw Nature Reserve website and you'll see my picture. And if you click on that picture, my face, just click on it. That would take you directly to the Sights and Sounds Trail Series. Some of my videos are on YouTube as well. If those don't have Facebook, still want to watch them, I can send you that link. Or you can just look up Sights and Sounds Trail Series, and that will take you to the page.